and welcome to this Supraliminal Games Arena Pauper content video.
Whoa.
I just said a lot of words that mean a lot of things. I'm Dan. He's Max.
Yeah, that's me.
You are.
Whoa.
You are. We are going to talk about Magic the Gathering Arena, specifically about Magic the Gathering Arena Pauper, specifically about the differences between Pauper and Arena Pauper, and what the meta is going to look like, and how we are going to approach it when the patch drops on Thursday, August 16th, 2018.
Mega stoked.
I'm super jazzed.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the first question to get out of the way, in case you're not familiar, is what is Pauper?
Max, what is Pauper?
Well, Dan, Pauper is a Magic the Gathering format where you play exclusively with commons.
Commons, but those are weak.
They are weak, and if you're not familiar with the rarities in Magic, just real quick, there are common, uncommon, rare, and mythic rare. So common is the low man on the totem pole. The thing that makes Pauper unique is it is a quote-unquote eternal format, which means that you can use all of the cards from Magic's history outside of a small banned list that they provide for the format. And otherwise, you can use anything you want from all the way back in the early days of Limited Edition Alpha.
Yes.
So
powerful Magic.
Yes, despite there being commons, there's a lot of powerful cards that you may not suspect are common. A couple good examples would be Counterspell, Delver of Secrets, Gush, Brainstorm. All of these are played in much more prestigious Magic formats, and formats I may point out that are allowed to have rares and mythic rares. So,
but sadly, none of those cards are going to be able to be played on Arena.
Correct, and that brings us to the next thing, the differences between Arena Pauper and Pauper Pauper, and they're a little different in that Arena Pauper is going to use commons exclusively from Standard. So this is kind of the Wild West. This is a whole new format.
A whole new world.
Exactly. It's a whole different thing. No one's really play tested it yet. There's no, unless you're like playing with your buddies in paper or something, there's no real forum to test it yet. I guess online you could also do. But it's going to drop, as Dan said, this coming Thursday. Or it's already out if you're listening to this past then. So we wanted to do a little, how do you get into the format? What do we think the boogeymen are? Because we do a lot of Pauper content. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, where we put it, you can also see that we have multiple episodes now of Pop-Up Video, which is our Paper Pauper series. That is all of Pauper, by the way, not just Arena Pauper, but all of Pauper proper. So check that out if you have a chance after this one. So we want to kind of get into some deck building practices, what we think the metagame is going to look like out of the gate, and any special cards that maybe you should keep an eye on, or very powerful cards that seem quite good in the format. So
powerful Magic.
I'm going to go ahead and bounce over to the various decks I have here. I have 3 Pauper lists I put together, and I want to start with the mono black deck first, and that is Pauper Rats. So if you're not familiar,
whoa.
Exactly, Ghost was pretty prophetic when it comes to what was coming for Pauper. And I think the first thing people are going to think of is Rat Colony. It's already kind of a menace on Singleton, because even in Singleton, you can play as many rats as you wish, because if the card says it, it must be true. So
Card text supersedes rule text.
Right, and I think Rat Colony does a lot of the similar things it does in Singleton, it does here in Pauper. I think you need to streamline things a little bit more than the Singleton versions, which usually splash blue for some card draw and Tetsuko Umezawa to make them unblockable. I don't think we have quite that level of luxury. And when you get into deck building practices, one of the most important things about building a deck is realizing the constraints that a format presents to you, especially in this regard. Your lands are pretty bad. You have some tap lands and some deserts You really don't have much more to work with in terms of non-basic lands at common. So keeping your decks 1 to 2 colors is going to be very, very important if you're looking for wins. It's going to be very important. Of course, you can always play whatever you want and have a good time. That's the point of Arena, especially now in beta. But if you're looking to try to succeed, and actually if they push Pauper as a format, or standard, quote-unquote standard Pauper as a format, I think it's a good idea, even if you're going to brew, to have an idea of what is going to kind of try to beat you. And I think Rats is going to be the first place a lot of people go.
It's always a good idea to know what other people are going to be doing when you go to play a game of Magic.
Right.
It's because it's not a game you play in a vacuum. It is a game you play with other people. There is always the chance that someone else out there is going to hit you with something that you didn't see coming or you didn't expect.
Exactly. So it's a great way to kind of lead off. When you're thinking of the deck you want to build, think about how it competes against the other decks that are out there. Recently, we competed in the Elder Dragon race, and one of the things we had to do while we were brewing decks to be played against other real standard decks was figure out the weaknesses of some of the decks we were building, and one of them was definitely Goblin Chain Whirler. So you couldn't play a rat deck because Goblin Chain Whirler came down on 3rd turn and took out 2 rats, or 4th turn and took out 3 rats, and just 3-for-1 and presented a 3/3 first striking wall, and no rat could attack past.
Yeah.
So that took that deck off the table. But in Pauper, I do think this is going to be the deck people go to. It's easy. It's straightforward. It definitely gives you wins.
Yeah.
I put together...
Rats are powerful.
They are very powerful. And I think I put together kind of a preliminary list for a couple of the decks we're going to talk about, and you can see it up on your screen right now, is Rat Colony. And in the deck, I have 26 Rat Colony, because you're allowed to run 26 of them. 4 Supernatural Stamina, which I think is very important, because it gives your rats not only a little extra damage if they get through and it's close to victory, you can give yourself the last 2 points you need to close the game out, but also, more importantly, it lets your rats trade off and come back, which is pivotal. You don't want to... The way you can get the game taken away from you is to lose your resources quicker than you can amass them. So that's very important. And speaking of that exact thing, one of the other cards, I have it up on the screen now, is Painful Lesson.
Oh yeah, gotta draw them cards.
And you want to draw more cards. And the reason we're using Painful Lesson is because, again, we're restricted to commons, and we really want to keep that mana base as streamlined as possible. And I think staying in mono black is very important, as opposed to branching out into blue for additional card draw. And I think Painful Lesson is a reasonable choice. By 5th turn, you can play your last rat and then draw 2 cards in the same turn, which I think is totally a reasonable turn 5.
I agree.
That's not bad at all. And I also have 2 copies of Wander in Death that lets you get 2 rats back for the price of 3. So it's like drawing 2 very specific cards. So I think that's pretty much all the deck needs. And I have 24 Swamps, which may go down to 22, and I may go up to Rat Colony, depending on what the test results are once we start actually playing real Pauper.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the list. It is Swamp, Painful Lesson, Wander in Death, Rat Colony, and Supernatural Stamina. So 5 unique cards. Right now for the sideboard, all I have laying down is some number of copies of Divest and some copies of Duress. I think they're both very good sideboard cards. Divest, if their deck is built around a creature that is kind of letting the deck go off, Divest can be very, very powerful. Duress, in the same vein, just for non-creatures. So if their deck's built around trying to do something very specific, or if they're a removal-heavy deck or a more control deck, Duress is great. If they are trying to win around one creature and then go off around one creature, in a sense, Divest becomes very good on the sideboard. So when you're thinking about a metagame, it's not just going to be everybody playing rats. There's going to have to be a foil in the format. If the format wants to stay healthy, there needs to be a foil for rats. And my opinion, and also Dan's opinion, because we talked about this at length, is the natural foil to rats is that they have 1 toughness. So we think that the other deck that a lot of people are going to think about very quickly, because it not only foils the rats, which I don't think people are quite thinking about out of the gate as much as we are, but because it's a common strategy in M19 Limited, and that is a Swarm style deck, and specifically I'm looking at a green-white token style deck.
Yeah.
Green-white tokens is one of the precons you get when you start playing Arena, so people are going to have access to a reasonable amount of the commons out of the gate. I think that the deck has a lot of reach, and the most important thing is you can make multiple tokens with one card and trade off those pieces, which could be even as much as Saproling Migration lets you get 4 Saproling tokens for one card. That means you can block 4 rat colonies and trade 4 resources for 1, which is extremely powerful. So I think the token deck is going to be a place a lot of people out of the gate end up going to.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that it has a lot of life gain synergies in it. It has a lot of cards that work together, and it has a really good way to just kind of punch through the final points of damage to win a game. The build I have here up on the screen on the 1-drop is 4 Sacred Cat, 2 Charge. Nobody did the charge.
Charge!
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't realize we were bringing stream memes into our recorded videos.
Sure, why not? It's a thing we do.
Charge!
Yes. If you watched a lot of our Dominaria Limited, and if you want to check it out, it's on YouTube here as well. You'll hear us kind of making fun a bit of charge, but in this token strategy, it's quite good.
Oh yeah, charge is good here. Because we're going wide.
Yeah. I got
wide is how you get rewarded.
Absolutely. 4 Anointer Priest to continue to reward ourselves with tokens. Martyr of Dusk, which I think is great against the rat-style menace or any piece of removal. It's a 2/1 for 2. It's efficient beats, and it turns into a creature after it dies. I have 3 copies of Jeru's Renunciation, which lets you tap 2 creatures. It also cycles for a single white. It's an instant, so end of turn you can tap down 2 creatures. If you have another copy in your hand, you can tap down 2 more, and you can punch through, and then maybe pump your crew. 4 Saproling Migration. That rounds out the 2 drops. 3 drops are 4 Jungleborn Pioneer, which make a blue Merfolk token with hexproof, which is quite potent. Yavimaya Sapherd, which is a slightly worse version of that because we don't have any payoffs for Saprolings. Queen's Commission, which is also a 4 of, makes 2 1/1 vampires with lifelink.
That card seems really good.
It is quite, especially when you can pump them.
Yeah.
And the 4-drop, I have 3 Propeller Pioneer, which is a 2/1 flyer for 4 with Fabricate 1, so it can either be a 3/2 flyer for 4, or it can make a servo token.
Okay.
And the last non-land card in the deck I have is Inspired Charge. So not just a charge, but an inspired charge.
Inspired Charge!
And for an extra 2 into white, you get an additional 1 power per attacking creature, well, per creature you control. So that's what you get in this deck, and I think it's a really good, lines up really nicely against the rat deck. So level 1 thinking is a lot of people are going to bring rats to the table. I think out of the gate, a lot of people are going to think about tokens, and I think tokens lines up really well against the rat deck. So Dan and I have tried to next level the metagame, and our thoughts went to something along the lines of what I'm calling Pauper Brown right now. It is a red and black deck that is built around artifacts, and it is built around specifically 2 cards that are common and I think really good payoffs and work well together. Reckless Fireweaver and Firebrand Archer. They both deal damage whenever a non-creature is cast, or for the Fireweaver, whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control. So they work very similarly. We also have access in black to Cabal Paladin, which is whenever you cast a historic spell, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. So each one has slightly different triggers, but basically what it means is if we play a considerable amount of artifacts in this deck, we can start to deal free damage to our opponent while adding to our board.
I like that.
So we wanted to play this deck, and it's for a very specific reason. It's because we have access to the card Blazing Volley. Blazing Volley is a single red sorcery from Amonkhet. It deals 1 damage to each creature your opponents control.
Is it as sad to you as it is to me that we basically put together an entire archetype for access to 1 card?
Well, my initial thought right away was Reckless Fireweaver, because I like Reckless Fireweaver a whole heck of a lot. And I like this stupid little, like, look, I'm, like, putting a bunch of stuff into play and getting free value off of it. So I think it's quite good. I think Blazing Volley is quite excellent, and the other card we get access to in black that's very similar to Blazing Volley is Fungal Infection. Fungal Infection is a single black instant that gives a creature -1/-1 until end of turn, and it also allows you to create a 1/1 green Saproling token.
Card's great.
It kills a rat and makes another creature to then block a rat and hopefully kill it as well. It lets you block tokens, it kills a token, lets you block another token. It just lets you get some of that X for 1 action that I was alluding to when I was talking about the token deck. So to run through this particular list real quick, right now I have it at 2 Augmenting Automaton, 3 Fungal Infection, 4 Implement of Combustion, 2 Blazing Volley, 4 Explosive Apparatus, 4 Renegade Map, 3 Dusk Legion Zealot, who's very important to, again, block little things and give you a card, 4 Firebrand Archer, 4 Reckless Fireweaver, 2 Prophetic Prism, 2 Fortuitous Find, which lets us return hopefully 2 things, and 4 Cabal Paladin, along with our 22 land. So very tight list.
That deck is the one I think I'm the most interested in out of all these.
Yeah, I think it's the most intriguing of the decks. It could fall completely on its face, but I think it has a good game plan, and I think it also has action against the decks we expect to see out of the gate in Pauper. I haven't yet run my head around a full control list yet, because until the metagame develops, it's really hard to build a control deck because you're stuck trying to answer everything, which is really taxing, and why it's taken so long for Modern to get a true control list, because it's too diverse of a format, and right now it's pretty unknown, so it's going to be really hard to say, hey, this is a good control deck in the format. So once that happens, maybe, and if we can find enough extra ones, perhaps we can build a control deck, but for now I like to keep it 1 to 2 colors, and I like to have a plan out of the gate, and I like to hopefully be able to next level the competition and have a little bit better of a plan than they do.
I'm just going to play rats, I'll be honest.
I mean, that's going to be a place I start. I'm going to test it. I want to see how many rats decks I come across. One of my early decks will definitely be tokens, to test that out as well. See what people are packing in the sideboards to deal with the token deck. Maybe my Blazing Volley plan for this artifact deck is too aggressive in the main. Maybe I just should go up a Fungal Infection and move all the Blazing Volleys to the board. All these things I'm excited to find out, because it's a whole new world out there. So
great. Having Pauper access, like having access to a Pauper format, is so cool, and it's another thing we can do with our cards, and it has the lowest barrier to entry on Arena. Yeah,
very exciting stuff. We're definitely excited to get out there and battle some Pauper. If you're battling on Pauper and you look at your opponent's name, I am Devin_X on Magic Arena.
Champ Blankman, capital C, capital B.
Absolutely. And if you want to find
either of us, we're great.
Well, I mean, maybe you'll beat the crap out of us and be like, oh, you guys suck. If you do, leave us a comment below and be like, I played you guys totally suck. And that's reasonable. But if you want to find content that does not suck, continue to look in the YouTube here. We have tons of stuff. If you want to catch us live on Twitch, we're definitely going to be streaming a buttload of Pauper, because we're super hype about it. It's not just, we love all things Pauper around here. So if you want to catch us there, please do. If you can't remember any of the names of things, twitch.tv/superliminalfilms or youtube.com/superliminalfilms, just remember superliminalfilms.com. I mean, it's really 2 words. I mean, it's not that hard to remember.
Superliminal and films. Plus, we'll link them down below.
Yay!